Hi, Adrienne. So good to see you.
Hi, Natalie. It's great to see you too.
Thank you for joining for this conversation. It's a great chance to catch up. I have known you for a while now. We can cover that if you want, but really what I'd be super interested in hearing about is what your job is, where you work. You could probably start by introducing yourself.
Sure. Yeah, well, thank you. And it's my pleasure. I have been, so my name is Adrian Mckee. I work at a company called CheckerSpot that is based and headquartered in Alameda, California. It's actually a little island off the coast of Oakland. It's somewhat less exotic than it sounds. But I have a background in molecular biology and genetic engineering. So many years ago, I was actually a student of Dr. Kildell's, and I took her course on molecular biology, and it was my first introduction to the world basic in biology that was not visible to me. Before that point, I had really focused on plants and really was thinking that I would go into plant physiology and ecology. And I took this course actually my senior year, which was pretty late in the game, on molecular biology, and it changed everything for me. I didn't really understand at that point that one could take some of the principles of crop genetics that I had been so keen in. I grew up I spent a year in India when I was a kid, and my dad is an engineer, a water engineer, and I got really interested in the ability to make crops be better, either grow faster or make more. But I didn't know that you could do that for other things. And so this was the first course to like learn about the capability sets there. But fast forward many years, etc. I went to grad school in the Boston area. I focused really in basic biology, at the RNA stage between DNA and protein, and how much diversity there is in sort of the cells to be able to take 20 to 30,000 genes and turn that into hundreds of thousands of proteins. What controls that? How does that work? But I was really driven to do something practical. I think having, both my parents grew up with farming in their background, and so the physicality of it was really important to me. And having a research paper at the end wasn't enough to get me motivated. And so I got into, well, what can microbes make? And then I got into the question of like, why are some microbes better at some things than others? And in the course of my postgraduate work, I had the opportunity to work out here in California, which is how I ended up moving from Boston out here, and was plopped down in this wonderful institution that was using a couple of different microbes to make a host of different things. And it occurred to me that the microbes were wrong, because there's a billion, trillions different type of microbes in the world, and some of them are really good at doing things already. So could we start with those ones that are really good at what they're doing and then build on there? And that's how I ended up working with the group of people that co-founded CheckerSpot, because we found these organisms that are actually microalgae that are really good at turning sugar into fat. And I can totally like wig out on how they do that, and what the biology is to get them there. But about 10 years ago, I moved out of the lab and into this amazing space between business development teams and R&D teams, and I basically consider myself grout. I'm not the tile in the shower, but I am the like thing that goes around it that holds the tiles together. And what it's challenging in that I'm not good at any one of those things, but I mean, I'm okay. But I'm not a trained expert in any one of them, but my days are extremely different, which I really value. And so I get to be on the science side. I can contribute on the science side, and now I've been enough on the business side to be able to say, well, these are the markets that are important, and these are the people that we would need to go convince to bring these two things together. And so CheckerSpot is a about a 6-year-old company, and we have a few different products in the market. And that's kind of a long winding story into how I started and where it's at.
It's amazing. I mean, it sounds like a dream job for lots of people because you get to do lots of things, you learn as you go. But it also sounds like you have to be pretty brave, right? How much of the time do you spend out of your comfort zone?
Oh, that's it. I'd say I don't even know what my comfort zone is. And I do think that there's an element of I just don't know how hard it's going to be, and so that doesn't act as a deterrent. Um, uh, I think I've been really fortunate to work with really good people and it's that there have been mentors and also people that have a lot more experience that have decided to really take what they're to take a subset of that daily activity that I have and really hone and focus on those. And so, across that last 10 or 11 years that I've been out of the lab, I've been able to work with a number of people that have, that I can go to. And even these are people at, maybe 3 companies ago that I cross paths with, but am able to rely on to say, I have a specific question in this area. And I could go spend 3 days trying to figure it out, or I could ask one person and they could answer it for me in 2 minutes.
Yeah. It's funny, mentorship comes up a lot when we have these conversations. It's hard to anticipate the role that the mentors will have in your career going forward, but I think people do turn to trusted individuals who almost invariably are very generous with their time and talent. I don't know if you have a particular mentor you'd like to shout out or a story that you find particularly relevant
there's so many. I think just in the last 3 weeks. With respect to the kind of materials that Checkerspot is making, one of the value propositions that we have is that we're making oils that can compete against fossil fuel based oils. So we have a process to convert those oils into materials. A lot of companies are interested in renewables because they, and this is a really big point, in theory, have a lower carbon impact. But getting into the math and getting into the calculation of how all that evolves is really tricky and involved. And there are people who go to school for it for many decades just to do those things. And I'm working with a very large European company to evaluate the impact, the environmental impact of the oils that we're making. And we're a little early days for what this very old esteemed company is. And so I reached out to somebody that I know from a company that I worked at 3 companies ago, who is an ESG expert. And she just took so much time away from her daily life and her existing job to sit down with me and walk through how to explain and how to understand the questions that I was giving her, so that I could put forward a proposal for this company.
That's a wonderful story, because it is really hard. And if you want to do a good job, turning to somebody who would sit down with you and walk you through what are the right questions to ask, that's exactly where a mentor can really help. That's such a great story.
Well, it also makes me feel really lucky to be able to do that, as my capacity in other ways. I've had the benefit of working with a lot of other teammates who've gone on to other things. And he and I worked really closely together on another project, and he's decided to go on to grad school. Now he's finished grad school and entering the job market. And he called me up. He's in Europe, and so he just called. Didn't know if there was gonna be an answer on the phone, but wanted to go through some of the options that he has to him. And it was really great for just to be able to contribute that back. in some capacity.
That sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. So do you want to say just a little bit, you said a little bit about what CheckerSpot does.
Sure.
Do you want to say anything else about it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So we, as I mentioned, we have this fermentation process, and
Yes.
I think most people know about fermentation through yeast
Mhm.
making ethanol. But lots of other microbes we can grow in E. coli. You can use, but there's a particular form of microalgae that we have managed to figure out how to grow to very large scales, and they are really good at making oils. And so these are the kinds of oils that that you might, you can think of an olive oil or a sunflower oil or even a coconut oil. The structure is effectively these are very similar to each other. We can make custom oils in these microbes, and then from those oils, we can go into a variety of different areas where oils are used today. And so the major focus for my time is in materials space. And we are making a couple of different polyurethanes. Polyurethanes are everywhere. They are, the foam in your car seat, the coating on your deck, the adhesive in your shoes. If you have a watch band, it's probably made out of polyurethane. And most of that today, almost all of it, not all of it, but almost all of it is fossil based. And it has been since the 30s when sort of like polyurethanes were invented. And we're not the first to introduce these kinds of renewable materials into polyurethanes, but we are leveraging this really unique and differentiated hero coming from microalgae, that we can more readily customize the shape of that molecule that goes into the polyurethanes. And so the benefit is that people who want to build or make or design or whatever with polyurethanes can do so with replacing up to, in some cases, 70% of those formulations with bio-based materials. And so the applications are wide set. As I mentioned, the polyurethanes are everywhere. We, as a company, learned a lot. Many of us worked together in a past life. What we realized is demonstrating the capability set is really, really, really important. And it's so much easier to talk about the end product of what all of that turns into than it is to talk about a bag of polyurethane.
Right.
And so CheckerSpot started a direct-to-consumer brand in 2019. It's called Wonder Alpine, and you can find it online. It's really kind of a crazy, never in a million years, it feels like we're just pulling words out of thin air and mashing them together, but we've got a 60-person company and 30 PhDs and 30 ski builders. And, so Wonder Alpine is manufacturing backcountry skis and snowboards. And we're in June, we'll launch our 4th season. What was amazing to me, and so I had mentioned, I've worn a lot of hats, and I'm a grout to a lot of things. I've been part of the company for almost 4 years. I was part of our early A and B series raises, and working with investors to translate what we're doing into the impact that it will have in 5, 10, 20 years from now. What was wonderful and so eye-opening for me to see is that within a week of us launching the Wonder Alpine brand, we had 9 companies from the ski and snowboard industry emailing or writing to us saying, how can we work with you? And we know from our past life, if we had said, we have an oil or we have a urethane, would you like to try it? 4 years later, we would still not be talking to them yet.
Right.
So I think that's been one of the greatest things about CheckerSpot is that materialization and like the physicality of it. And we're going to be doing that in a couple of other arenas fairly soon. Nice. So you'll see a personal care component coming very quickly. And then another one to follow. And so that one's a little bit further out, but effectively wherever oils can go, are areas that we will be showcasing the platform in those specific parts of the market.
It's amazing. There is so much to be excited about with your company and with this field. It's amazing where you've landed. It's a very exciting arena for sure. So, Adrienne, thank you so much for taking some time to talk.
Absolutely, yeah. Be wonderful if anybody wanted to reach out for questions. I'd be happy to talk with them.